We've got you covered at coverme.gov. That's coverme.gov.
And lost the first U.S. moonlander mission more than 50 years in danger after that the unmanned launch. And the exclusive Olympic gold medalist Mary Lou Retton, her first interview since her life-threatening health battle. ABC Nightly News with Lester Holt. Good evening and welcome everyone. There are major developments tonight in the investigation about Alaska Airlines Boeing 737 MAX 9 jet that suffered a mid-air depressurization and loss of an entire door window assembly from a door plug over Portland, Oregon on Friday. United Airlines, the U.S. operator of the MAX 9, reports inspections of its aircraft have found instances of issues.
Airlines MAX 9 Friday night, landing in a teacher's backyard. The plane will undergo a close inspection of the NTSB lab in Washington as investigators look at how and why the plane suffered a decompression explosion at 16,000 feet.
Please unmute your mic.
Has the meeting started? Do you guys mind unmuting? I think the town of Winthrop's mic is muted. Nobody on Zoom can hear anything.
Thank you. All were in favor.
Feedback.
On this one.
Find the mute button on this. Yeah. You have to make a look about it.
Next on the agenda is item 228, consideration of awarding a contract to RJD Appraisal in response to a request for proposal for assessing services.
I'll move to approve a 3-year contract with RJD Appraisal for assessing service.
Is there a second?
I have some questions. Me too.
Okay, we can go into discussion.
Does this contract, that we have put out there for, RFP, does that include the updating of the property cards, all of the, in-house information? Is that something the assessing department is under this contract? Is that something that they're responsible for?
All right, so we've got that myself. All right, good. So the updating of the assessment code should actually fall under the revaluation contract that we previously executed.
I'm talking the property cards that are in the, as far as property sales, ownership.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, now those things, yes.
Do we have anything in there as far as parameters as to what, how soon they need to be updated or kept in date, up to date?
Not in the contract specifically. Rob, you want to speak to that, please? Why don't you come over here?
That's a hard question to answer generally, because our work being cyclical in nature, there's times in the year that's very busy, getting ready to come in, and once the bill has been sent out, the taxpayers coming in with a lot of questions and concerns. So the updating and the ownership kind of gets put on the back burner, just dealing with the issues at hand. But as time, generally speaking, when we're here as often as we are, we do work on some ownership updates every time.
Well, I don't know, I haven't checked recently, but I bought a piece of property in 2020. And up to, say, 3 years afterwards, it still showed the previous owner in the town records. So
Did you receive the tax bill?
I did, but as far as like any of the tax maps, the property cards, because I went in and pulled the cards. I don't know if it's been updated at this point, but I'm just wondering what kind of time frame you normally have to, like real estate, for example, the real estate agents that are coming in and pulling information. Attorneys, all those people rely on that data to be accurate. And I've seen myself on just my small world that I deal in, where the information hasn't been accurate. I can imagine that the people that are doing it every day have quite a battle with that. I'm just wondering what are the expected timeframes that something like that would be handled?
Well, if you receive the tax bill in your name, then it was updated properly in the software, in the camera system. So we have to have all of our work done in time to submit it every year. So annually, it's updated, but in between the months of that particular year, it all depends on workflow. And I'm not sure if you went and pulled the record out of the file cabinets in there, they're not always produced in the card. Everything's digitized now, those are the old records, so wouldn't put in a proper record card in there. In those
Okay.
files.
What is the time frame though, that you would normally expect something like that to be done? I mean, are you talking a year, or are you talking
everything will be done on it for the commitment, which is an annual commitment.
Councilor Davis.
So this will be a question maybe for you and possibly Anthony, because the data, because we've been using you for quite a few years now. What is the, what was the increase? What we paid you last year?
Every year we were here, we had a day rate with the per diem contract agreement, it was $655 per day per agent.
And I guess the next question is really more towards Anthony. When we get a 3-year contract, is that locked in at 3 years, or is he just projecting what it could be for 3 years?
No, those prices are locked in for the term of the contract.
So that's what we're talking or voting on a 3-year contract.
That's correct.
And how does that compare per day with the per diem that you were doing before?
It's so per diem, we had an increase in all of our towns for the per diem this year, and the contracted amount is for what we expect to pay us on a per diem basis. We're here a little bit less than 90 days a year.
Still also short. 2 years ago, we spent $58,000. Last year, we spent $54,000. So, you know, if you look at $58,000 to $60,000 in this contract, it's a reasonable increase. And difference from those as well, as mentioned, was the number of days that they had personnel here. So we typically have someone here 8 to 4 each Wednesday, as you probably know. But in addition to that, RJD will send additional personnel to handle some of the field matters that they often deal with. And I would say we have at least one additional person here at least once a month. Rob, is that a fair assessment?
You know, once or twice.
And we'd have to have that if he's saying 90 days, there's only 52 weeks in a year.
Well, and sometimes there are 2 fellows here working in the field at the same
Yeah,
time.
that would almost have to be 2 people for a full day per week.
Yeah.
We were averaging about 2 days a week. And if we had time in those 2 days, we would go get building permits, go out and make site inspections.
So are there posted hours? I mean, I know Wednesdays, for example, you said you're averaging 2 days a week. Is there another day that you guys are typically here that we can advertise
To
that
me,
you're
the
available?
people, it's every other Friday, every Wednesday and every other Friday.
Okay.
And then we come in, I announce if you will, keep the workload up to date. All the building permits, like I said, all the site visits we have to make. And then all personal property accounts, this is equipment we send a letter out to everybody with their current asset list. And we get back all of their responses, we have to process all that as well.
Okay,
So with that figure and that cost versus having per diem, there's no additional cost. If you go above certain hours, and you have to come in and complete certain tasks to get certain things done at a certain time, above and beyond what you've been doing. Is that what my understanding is?
This is
One flat rate.
One flat rate. I mean, it's been 8 years that we've been here, so I'm confident in the amount of work that this town produced so far. So that ends up being the average that we had. I mean, last year with the stabilization program, everybody had to apply for. We had a little uptick in our days last year, and I knew that, so I didn't look at that at my average.
you have a question? Go ahead.
Good. Under a previous administration, I think that some of us were told that personal property tax collection is unenforceable. And if that's true, has a study ever been done about if it's actually worth continuing to collect personal property information?
It is, the amount of personal property that we did declare to us, it's in the tens of millions. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if you didn't. There is a higher uncollection rate for personal property in real estate. You have to go to small claims court to get the tax rate back. So it's a bit of a process.
Yeah, we were told that at that point in time, it really was, unless it was big money, it really wasn't worth all that trouble. So we just undeclared, unpaid personal property taxes went unpaid. Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions? Wednesday. Okay, I believe there was a motion on the floor by Andy. Was there a second?
I'll second.
Bruce, all in favor? All are in favor? Item, thank you very much. Moving on to item 229, discussion and consideration of the Kennebec Valley Gardening Club fundraising proposal. And I believe we have a Miss Debbie Sherman here.
So microphone to Manager Wilson, and thank you councilors for listening to. We present to you and hopefully an approval of our fundraiser. I'm the chairman of the Kennebec Valley Garden Club. And we are a nonprofit organization with the impetus of giving a scholarship yearly to our students from the Kennebec Valley area that would maybe major in horticulture, conservation. And so maybe some of you saw on the recent Dawn Kerrigan 207, that's the Kennebec Valley Garden Club that decorated the Blaine House, which we have been doing for many, many years. And we also do a lot of different civic fundraisers. So this year, we decided, since Augusta has the Sturgeon and Hallville has the beautiful Adirondack Shaders, we thought Winthrop would be a wonderful community to have flowers, flower power, designed and painted and decorated that would go to the town. You would own it. It would be no expense to you. Our garden club members would get sponsors. We would have students decorate them, and I brought some examples so that you could see, and they would be attached to the lamp poles. And you have those around, they would be really large and they would be done by the students in the Winthrop area. So this is why I am asking you if you would approve our fundraiser. And that money will be used to, here again, give the scholarship. Last year we gave 2 scholarships, depending on how much fundraising money we procure. So if you have any questions, it will be a town commitment by using students in the schools. So I will meet with the superintendent, get teachers that are interested. We would have different businesses, maybe cut some of the flowers, design them. So it's a win-win for Winthrop. It would be flower power and it would beautify the town. Any of that?
Yeah, who would be responsible for the long-term maintenance of these, flowers? And you would?
Well, once they're done and once they're hung on the lamp poles, and we're hoping to get at least 23 to 25 of these flowers, then we would give it would be you, the town of Winthrop, that would own these flowers.
So am I correct in translating that as we would be responsible for the long-term maintenance?
The answer would be yes.
Thank you very much. And another issue that I see coming up. Yeah, we have to order the fund. No, just kidding. We're in the middle of establishing a downtown revitalization committee and planning what the future appearance and uses of our town are gonna be. And I'm not sure if those flowers might be premature.
I think it would be a nice thing to get started to beautify downtown.
I agree.
We need to start somewhere. And something is better than nothing, and it would be done by the kids, painted by the kids. It would be lacquered, so water would not just pouring water off. So kids would take ownership of, they would do the painting, and everybody that donates for this, that becomes a sponsor, we would put their sponsor name on the flowers that would be attached to the lamp pole. So they would be recognized.
I think, you know, it's at no cost to the town. I think it's a good thing to do, and I think we need to let our foot off the brake on the beautification of downtown and get the revitalization started, and I don't think that's gonna hurt anything.
Here, here.
Thank you, thank you. Here again, I'm not sure the time frame that this would be completed, but I will keep you apprised of the steps taken. And the main goal is for fundraising so that we could send some more students into through their scholarship. And our club's been in existence since 1928. We're firmly established. We do the Blue Star marker. We do garden tours. We do plant sales. Highly respected, all through Kennebec.
Now, if there was a, you know, say with the revitalization efforts that we're gonna hopefully get in motion at some point, and we wanted to move them, place them in different locations to allow what we're looking at doing or want to do, or that's not an issue with your club. I mean, it's just a matter of moving them.
Right, in other words,
We own them.
once they're done, you own them. You may do what you would want to do with them.
All
We're
right,
just the processing to get the project underway and done.
I make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second?
Is there a motion?
It's just a discussion. It's just a discussion.
Just a discussion.
It's just a discussion. There's no motion.
How do we?
You'd have to come back.
We can add to the next.
Yeah, I was just anticipating a discussion and I didn't see if you folks were interested in this.
Can we put a motion to do it?
Well, you know, it does seem to be discussion and consideration. We did not include a suggested motion, so yeah, you can go and do that.
Yeah, you can make it work. We've done it before. I mean, I've had items where we had just discussion and we went ahead and voted right on it. So I think I just put this to bed and go for it.
So Roy made the motion. You seconded
I'll
it?
second.
All are in favor? All are in favor. Thank you, Ms. Sherman.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 230, the discussion of the designated growth area in the 2024 comprehensive plan update. I believe that we have a memorandum with some options that were presented, and including Pat Ladd, I believe, is here from the comprehensive planning committee to also go over her portion.
Let me just set the stage here quickly. So this is just a discussion.
Yeah.
Because we're not looking for any action tonight. We're looking for some guidance because the one final piece that we need to complete in order to complete the update of the comprehensive plan is determining what our designated growth areas is. And so we come before you tonight with three options, and you may see more than that, but these are three options that we thought of how you might move forward on a designated growth area. Now, number one is simply to use the designated growth area from the 2010 plan as a baseline for the update. With these modifications, one, you would just maintain the whole of the general commercial, limited commercial, industrial, and village zones, which are currently in the designated growth area. So those would not change. That would remain as a designated growth area. Additionally, you would include the whole of the general residential zones. And so right now, there are some portions of residential zones and some pockets of residential zoning that are not included in the designated growth area. And you could include all of those. And one of the reasons that you might do that is we anticipate that most of the growth in Winthrop in the coming 10 years will be residential in nature as opposed to commercial. And then thirdly, you would remove from the current designated growth area, the portions that are zoned rural. And so you might ask, well, why would you do that? Well, two reasons is one, right now, it's not clear what the boundaries of our designated growth area are. Even our code enforcement officer, who's our resident expert on zoning matters, and now of course with our town planning on staff. But even Mark is unsure exactly where the boundaries of the designated growth area are. So if you include the whole of the zoning of those zoning districts, then you know exactly where it is. And two, those zoning areas were approved because that's where the town decided it naturally wanted growth to occur, is in those areas that you're zoning for those activities. So that's one option. The second option, and you have two maps before you. One of those maps
What
is,
are these maps?
So this map right here is what we're talking about as far as the designated growth area as it exists right now.
So the designated growth area is the hash mark,
Is the hash marks, yes,
but that doesn't include all of the,
yes.
that doesn't include of all of the general residential or
That's correct.
all of the village area, like you just said.
No, the village area is actually completely in the designated growth area. However, the portions, Roy, that you mentioned of the residential zones that are not hash marked, those would be included in the designated growth area under the option that I just explained.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So essentially, you're gonna extend it up Memorial Drive.
Yeah, all of the portions that are marked in sort of
So these
orange
right here,
Spanish color.
these are gonna be expansions?
Nothing, where it's this color right here, the general residential zones. So there's one that is in East Winthrop, there's some up Memorial Drive, like you said. One that's within walking distance of the village, and one over in a couple of pockets in northwest and southwest Winthrop. So you, if you chose that option, you'd be making the whole of all those general residential zones part of the designated growth. So that's option one. So option two is the other map that you have. And it's a map that was designed by Pat Ladd from our comprehensive planning committee. And it's more expansive in that she added some color coding so that the portions that are in yellow, green, and purple would also be added as the designated growth area. And we'll get
Not purple.
oh, not purple, pardon me, removed. So we'll let Pat get up and explain that, because she'll do a far better job at that than I would explain that. And then the third option would be simply to sort of split the difference between some of those maps. So that might mean maintaining the rural areas that are currently in the designated growth area. So you go back to the other map, and the portions that are white that are cross hatched, those would remain in the designated growth area. So that's one thing you could do. Or you could add some of the rural zones that are in central Winthrop. And so you see some areas here that are sort of surrounded by general residential zoning, but they're zoned rural. And you could include those in the designated growth area. And one advantage to potentially doing that is Dawn explained to me that if there was ever a move to rezone those areas to general residential, having those in the designated growth area strengthens that argument to rezone those. Because under state law, you want your designated growth area to reflect your zoning. I mean, they should align to some extent. So those are sort of the three options as we see them. And like I said, Pat can do a much better job than I can explaining program.
Last time we met, we talked about just extending the development zones to where we can utilize water and.
So don't confuse the designated growth area with the affordable housing overlay zones. They're two separate animals. So that's what we were talking about. Except that if you wanted to expand the overlay zone, the other option besides.
What we did was use the designated growth area.
Use portions of the designated growth area. So if you wanted to expand your overlay zone, you wouldn't have to include the whole of the designated growth area. You could expand it in strategic portions of the designated.
Okay, I didn't realize that portion, I don't think that was.
Yeah, so-
On the table, I didn't realize that was on.
No, so what we talked about last time, Lloyd, was approving the skinniest option possible right now in order to, conform with state law.
Yeah.
And then once we get a designated road area, then if the council wanted to, we could revisit that in order to determine whether or not we wanted to grow that, that overlay zone in some strategic ways.
So this, I'm sure Pat's gonna get up and explain this, but I can ask a quick question. You said the purple is on her map is removal.
Yeah.
What's the yellow
Including.
included? Because it looked like it was, crosshatch kind of, all the
We can,
hash marks on there kind of made it.
you want her to talk?
Yeah, absolutely. Love to have her come up.
All right, Pat, come on up. Thank you for coming today and briefing your.
So, I don't have that.
We don't have it,
I'll speak loudly. So originally, when we met as a committee and met with several people in town and talked about what should be the growth zone, and we thought we should allow for the growth zone to have some land that wasn't already developed, that had some ability to have a subdivision, a little bit more land. I'm a little concerned when we just do the residential, because most of what is residential, the company has a home one, already has a structure. So if we wanted to come in and add a subdivision, and we want to purge building here, that's a little limiting. Even if we're just expanding to the residential zone. What is green on here are areas that are already developed, seem to have quite a bit of already good houses, but they're being developed around there. There's a lot of, traffic that goes there already. It's sort of a natural walking, like on Metcalf, walking easily to town, getting into town easily, or getting into commuting to Augusta. The yellow area was a lot of that. We've got, outskirts of Mill Road, we've got houses going in there already. It seems natural that if we have building going on there, that we could add more building on there. When I originally did the map, this is a compromise map, when I originally did the map, it was significantly more expanded, which didn't seem to go over too well, so we cut it back and made it a little more dense. The purple areas are areas, say, out on Case Road. There's a section of purple. If you've ever ridden a snowmobile out there, you're gonna get stuck. It's wet. You know, the land is not suitable. Now it's a septic. We're never gonna get sewer out there. There shouldn't be houses there. It's too wet. The other purple zones have similar issues, or the soil is bad, or the slope is bad, or the technical proximity. So the purple are areas that I thought personally, from walking around and out there, it's not easy to develop and not conducive to developing. What I tried to thoughtfully do is not do it the easy way and just say our general residential backward growth zone, to do areas which I think have land that can be developed that are logical for people in our town to want to do them.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the council? That explains the burn again.
Yeah, just to add, one thing that Pat just said, just for clarity's sake, is there's nothing, so Joel Greenwood, who's the planning director of, I think is, at least in my mind, sort of the best explanation what a designated growth area is to be. It's supposed to be aspirational as opposed to regulatory. And so what that means is that it's where we think growth should occur versus where it could occur. And so just to be clear, there's nothing that prevents someone from developing a subdivision or building a home in the rural zone. There's nothing in approving a designated growth area that would prevent that from happening. It's just trying to designate where we think that growth should occur as opposed to, you know, everywhere that it could.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so was there any consideration in commercial, general commercial, or is that gonna be a separate process?
So right now, Aaron, all of our commercial zoning is in the designated growth area. We think that that should all remain as it is right now. Now, that doesn't mean that at some future point, we wouldn't necessarily want to rezone some areas in order to expand that commercial zoning. But at this point, for the designated growth area, nothing in that regard would change. At least, you know, the way that we're envisioning it right now.
And again, this is just to allow for statutory things to move forward with planning and.
Yeah, so when I say that this is not regulatory, it's where we would hope that growth occurs, it's where we seek to direct growth, if that's at all possible. I mean, ultimately, you know, developers are gonna develop wherever they want to, but we would try to encourage them to develop within this designated growth area. And that's for two reasons. One is you don't want your municipal services to become so far flung that it puts an even greater burden on the taxpayer. And then the second thing is, if this is consequential to a community, if you want to maintain somewhat of a rural nature, then you would try to direct growth into your designated growth areas so that your rural areas remain rural.
However, this is going to, the designated growth area is going to drive our future land use ordinance somewhat, correct? You said it's not regulatory, but it is going to direct regulatory action when we look at the future land use ordinance that we're looking at addressing as soon as this whole comprehensive plan.
So Don, why don't you speak to that?
So the answer is yes, that's correct. So once you finish the plan, goals and objectives. So maybe you're planning board, maybe for instance, one goal in a certain area, really things that a school could use is food identity lots. And that would be the zoning board. So that will inform the planning board and members who designated to make those decisions. The tools that they want to use to influence the part of the investment.
Or also change or rezone areas like we're looking at possibly doing in some of the places in town, but.
I just wanted to make some, I guess, general comments to this kind of, Pat, I appreciate everything, that you've been doing the work. And I know you're very familiar with this area, so I know it's very informed. And I do agree, it's finding the right balance. The housing stock in this town is problem, like many across the state. But we, it's certainly with our mill rate creeping up and up. We definitely need to be thinking about drawing in other tax revenue to support, again, services obviously, but I do appreciate your thought on that.
Are there any other counselors, any questions, comments?
Sure, with that. Okay, so one thing that occurred to me in the 2010 comprehensive plan, did ask for some growth areas up behind the old ball barrels where you have them, up 30 Lane up that way. We encourage them in those areas, half-acre lot sizes, the allowance of an extra apartment per se, say a mother-in-law apartment. And we also asked that we might encourage that we're in sewer district to run trunk line up there that developers could possibly tie into. That would help reduce the sewer rates, for one thing. And if the prices can be kept down low enough, it might even help us with affordable housing. Go to half-acre lots, smaller homes, and an extra apartment. Good.
Other counselors?
So again, what we're needing is some guidance as to how you want us to move forward with the designated growth area. So like I said, it's the last piece of the puzzle of the comprehensive plan.
I have no problem with, kind of being more inclusive on Pat's side. Again, it's not permanent. It's something that it'll give us a little bit more flexibility as far as when zoning rules come down the line. And if I have no problem with the committee, if KD Cog's involved as well, the planner.
That's correct. In fact, we have on our Zoom call, we have the planning director for KD Cog.
She wants
Joel Garrido. Joel, is there anything you want to add to this conversation?
No, I don't think so. It sounds like the main points have been covered. It's nice to see that everyone's considering this with the right information. I think Pat has done a great job kind of spearheading the vision of the committee, and Anthony obviously explains the regulatory side of this in terms of it's the last piece of the plan. And like I say, once we get that done, then we're pretty close to finishing up. Thank you.
See, when I look at this map and everything, both of these maps, I mean, you know, you're potentially looking at hundreds of lots. And that's kind of where it kind of makes me nervous in terms of what are we looking for growth here? I mean, because you've got potentially hundreds of lots here, and that means hundreds of units, and that's a whole nother deal when it comes to schools in this town and services. You know, that's where my concern is. I mean, it's a huge concern that I have. You know, you've got potentially hundreds of lots potentially going in and developing, and what are we gonna do for services? It's not,
But to Anthony's point a minute ago,
but
all those hundreds of lots still right now can be developed. There's nothing, this is not regulatory in any way, shape or form. You're not changing the ability for those lots to be developed. Right. Like now, they can still be developed.
This kind of pushes like where we would like to.
correct.
Right, it's more, I see this as the biggest effect it's gonna have is on our, what is it, the increased density?
The overlay zone.
The overlay, exactly. So the overlay zone and also the direction that the future land use ordinances are gonna go in regarding
Yeah.
what we choose to do here, what we're gonna push what changes we're gonna make in the ordinance.
Where to do it.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about that.
I just wanted to, you know, express so much of concern that this council is the one who ultimately approves things zoning changes, so. This is a guide for the planning board, but if there was going to be something that allowed increased development and still comes to regulation.
One of the things that I'd like to say is I'm not in opposition to the growth area. However, I do think that there needs to be regulation of ADUs. And I think we should take a hard look at some of the other communities, South Portland, how they address ADUs. They have some pretty good regulations in there that protects not only the property owners, but set some clear guidelines for the usage of these accessory dwelling units. I'll be happy to share that with you. I have a copy of it.
And, you know, interestingly, Don had a pretty lengthy discussion last week with Stephen McDermott, who has some of those same ideas.
I got an email from Stephen. He forwarded me the ordinances in South Portland, which I think is a good compromise. So I'm gonna be happy to share that unless you've already looked at it.
For one, I like the idea, I like the bigger area as growth areas, based on, you know, the discussions we've had with the future land use and the attempt at trying to make bigger lot sizes necessary in order for development. I think with the growth area in the bigger growth area, I think it's less likely to, you know, particularly in the growth area, we're less likely to increase the lot sizes. We'd rather be, you know, I'm for leaving them the same, particularly in the rural and general residential areas, and not increasing the need for a bigger lot in order to develop it.
Yeah, and just to be clear, so I think recommending that larger lot sizes might be in order for the rural zone is off the table. And but conversely, if you include a portion of the rural zone in the designated growth area, and that eventually gets rezoned to general residential, then you will be decreasing the lot size. The lot size in the general residential zone is smaller than in the rural zone.
You'll be decreasing it, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Decreasing.
Yeah.
Yeah, starting, Mark, about 4 years ago, I think, and I'm not blaming this on you, Mark. We were supposed to be developing a large digital easily read, easily adjusted map. And we have yet to see it, or at least I haven't. What happened?
Nothing's happened, so.
Well, maybe I should ask what didn't happen.
No, so I'm glad that Joel is online, because Joel has been working on, this map, before you, so this is our new digital zoning map. This is done through a GIS system. And so Joel is going to also create a layer on this mapping for tax maps. And in fact, I just spoke with our assessor earlier this evening while we were eating cake together. And I realized we need to double check with his assessing agent here, because he's going to provide Mr. Greenwood the data that he needs in order to create the digital tax layer and that GIS mapping system. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I'm thinking that we should have something electronic that we can put on a screen when we're sitting here talking, and those different zones could be shown.
That's exactly what digital means. Yeah.
Instead of.
Yeah, and we're going to have a presentation here shortly about an AV system that can make that easier in students.
Thank you.
So what I'm hearing is an endorsement of, I'll call it the Pat Ladd plan.
Yeah, I mean,
I think so. I would like to encourage considering smaller minimum lot sizes. Okay. And expansion sewer district to go along with it.
All right, can I ask if there's anybody else that would like to discuss anything on this to come to the podium? We'll keep it for about 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Steve McDermott, just a couple of things I want to point out, right? So when we're talking about designated growth areas are tools that are created through the comprehensive plan, right? The comprehensive plan gives you the option to designate where you want to see the development within your community and keep that separate from the rural areas of your community, really bifurcate that and really help maintain a rural nature, but also intentionally plan the development of your community while also hearing those concerns about investment. There should also be a capital investment plan and strategy that covers 10 years of development when you go along with that. So what we should be doing is when we think about growth areas, is thinking about where you want to see that development for the community intentionally by looking at what is the projected growth, which may or may not be included in a draft form of the comprehensive plan, and mapping out what the needed infrastructure would look like for that. So along with saying, where do we feel like growth should happen within the community, we should be looking at what will that cost us? And how will we make that happen and how will we afford that? So I think there's an intentionality that goes along with maintaining the community and developing it so it is sustainable. So I think that there's a two-part component. We're looking at how can the community grow and sustain what it is and continue to flourish while also nourishing itself and continuing to thrive.
Thank you, Steve.
And to be clear, the sort of capital improvements that Stephen is talking about are things like roads, utility lines, facilities. So that might be schools, might be a municipal facility, but those are the three main things that you probably be looking at as far as capital investment within your designated growth area. And in fact, the comprehensive plan requires that if the town invests in those sort of improvements, that 75% of that investment end up within your designated growth area.
Okay. All right, well, I think that concludes that discussion.
Yes.
So we appreciate Pat and Steve and the members of the Comprehensive Planning Committee for coming and meeting with us, and Don and Bill Greenwood for also coming and attending as well. Thank you for all your hard work on this, and look forward to the next step. All right, moving on to item 231, discussion of audio video options and costs in the all-purpose room in Bailey Public Library.
Yeah, so again, this is just a discussion item, we're not ready for the action tonight. But obviously there's been a desire to improve the audio visuals in this space, both for the people who are in attendance in the audience and for those who are tuning in remotely. And so Roy actually informed us of this fellow back here, Jay Gaudet, who is a Winthrop native and works for Pro AV Systems in southern Maine. Pro AV Systems has completed similar AV projects for other governmental entities. So we invited them in here and had them look at this space so that they could give us a recommendation. And they're going to talk a little bit about that here shortly, but just to give you a broad overview. Their proposed solution would cost nearly $60,000, at least in their estimates. So that is something that we could fund with our ARPA funds. We have nearly $180,000 left in ARPA money that needs to be incorporated by the end of this year and then spent before the end of 2026. So if what you hear from Pro AV Systems is something that you are agreeable to, what we would do is we would put out an RFP for a design build, and that is the vendors, as Pro AV Systems have done here, would come in and propose a design system, and then they would actually be the ones to install. So it's sort of a 2-for-1 in the RFP. You're not looking for someone to design it and then issue another RFP to actually put that design, the specs of those designs into action. Now, they also looked at Richard Fortin's request at 2 spaces at the library, the big meeting space where we had the candidates forum last year, and then also the meeting room space that they had for it. And so with what they were looking at, and we're just talking about the event space, would cost about $51,000. And so what we would say is, let's not pursue that until we can find grant money that would pay for it. Because I have found a grant program. T-Mobile has this grant program called Hometown Grants, and it is for connecting communities of fewer than 50,000 people technologically. And so that project would seem to be tailor-made for that grant program, but we would not pursue that sort of project until we had the grant funds in hand. And so with that, I want to turn the floor over to Jeff Harlan with Pro AV Systems, and then, as I said, Jake is here also to answer any questions that you folks may have.
Anthony, you got those tomatoes?
Thank you for inviting us up. We appreciate the time. My name is Jeff Carlin. I'm the account manager for Pro AV Systems. And I work with both the town of Winthrop now. I've worked with the Winthrop public school system for some time. In fact, some of our systems are right down the hall from here. Jake, outside of being a fellow Winthropian, is our install supervisor and general manager. We do a lot of work with government entities around the state, including a number of the new courthouses. We just wrapped up a larger stadium project with the state of Maine, the Grove Traditional Center, for about $2 million in Biddeford. We do a lot of work up in the State House. We work at the Cross Building, Central Maine Healthcare, and most of the K-12 we live throughout the state fall under our umbrella. And one of the key things that we really do as a group is we're looking for clients who have important places they have to meet in, with important topics to discuss, and we supply the equipment to make sure that that happens. And I could probably sit up here and give you a sales pitch for an hour, but there was no better pitch than the first few minutes of watching this meeting get off the ground. And the fact that I don't have a microphone, I can barely see what's going on in the display over there, and the poor folks on the outside are probably getting blasted by the speaker. But as you imagine, we've got a host of engineering staff, and specialists who basically review all the details that we collected on the space to come up with a solution to basically improve upon it for the experience of everyone inside the space, but then everyone who attends it remotely. And we were asked to visit, Nancy's point, three locations, 2 of which were at the library, and this one. And so I kind of thought what might be easiest would be to describe, if you will, what we were thinking for this space. And then I can talk to some of the variances of the library, because there's a big space over there that's very similar to what we would do here. And then the smaller conference room over there, that's the short tackle. But there's basically a few different buckets of things that we have to consider for technology when we look at a space like this. We have the video components, you have the audio components. You have the control factor, how you make the room work, and then essentially the infrastructure that supports it. On the video side of the house, what we would recommend for this space would be a larger projector screen up front, very large, about 164 inches in diameter. That would be shot with a laser projector mounted from the ceiling over here at 7,000 lumens, which is probably twice as bright, more than twice as bright than most of the Luminites projectors you have in your classroom system. Laser module, no bulb, you don't have to get up there and change it. That's what would be showing the content that you see up here. You'd actually be able to see. In this case, I could actually made a presentation, we would all been able to see it. On the flip side, for you folks, we would look at putting what we call a confidence monitor, a 75-inch display hanging from up here, which projects, allows you to see what these folks see up here duplicated in front of you. So you always have a visual, and this is the reason why they call it the confidence monitor, that when you're talking, you can confidently be seeing exactly what the folks in the room are seeing. That's how everyone in the space is able to view what you're sharing and talking about. What we then need to consider is, all right, how do we get this information visually to the folks who are attending remotely? And so we would be looking at moving 2 different PTZ cameras, let's say for pan-tilt zoom. We would do one at the rear with a higher powered zoom that would then focus in what we would call like the horseshoe up front here. It would give you a preset zoom, so when you power it on, turn on the system, it would show everyone closely. It would look like you were standing right very close in the row here. Everyone would show up clearly. For the podium space, we would have a second camera that would be mounted over that area likely, with a preset that had a zoom in on it that would show, you know, from a point about this point to college campus. So I'm a little on the shorter side. But we would set the preset so that when you come in and power on the system, we don't really want you monkeying around with too much. You know, we really want it set so that you're off and running when you hit the system. You have the presets the way you want it. But there is some flexibility with it. So if you want to change up the presets so that maybe the way you're conducting the meeting, there's a couple of mics. This one is wireless, so I can move around. I might want to roam, and so we might want one of the presets for this to be a wide shot. So it's podium and then the seating area. And there's easy ways to toggle through that. You can also toggle between which the 2 cameras is being sent to the far end. If you want the horseshoe, that can be sent. If I'm talking with a quick touch of a button, it would move to me and zip camera feed, and that's what would be sent to the other side. So everyone can see and hear me clearly. So moving on from the video side, you have the audio. For hearing inside the space, we would do 12 ceiling speakers mounted throughout, and we would do them in 2 zones. We get rid of these, and so the microphones used at the front would essentially be designed to lift your voices and spread that throughout zone 2. Zone 1 is here, zone 2 is over here. So everyone over here gets an amplified version of what you're saying. When folks are on the far end when they speak, they come through all 12 speakers. So we can hear everyone on the call. And when you guys talk, everyone in the group can be heard. And that's sort of how we're capturing, if you will, and sending out the sound within space. The microphones, there would be a replacement up front with BlueStack mics all around that tether to a cable that goes to a connection under the wall. Then we would also supply a wireless microphone that would live up here at the podium. It would be mounted, so you could just come up and leave it here if you want to, or you could pick it up and you could walk around with it if you saw fit. For running the meeting, it would be done in a very similar fashion in that it would be driven off a laptop. We call it a BYOD space, bring your own device. Laptop comes in, you connect your HDMI cable and your USB. That will extend the microphone, the camera, and speakers from the laptop to everything in the room, and the brain sort of control all that. And you would just join your meeting like normal. So the GUI on the screen, the controls that you're used to would live there. For controls in the room, we would manage that in 2 different ways. You would likely put a 10-inch touchscreen on that wall back there that would have your room controls. When you come into the space, you want to turn on the system, power it on, and there'd be some things that we would set up to happen automatically. The screen might come down automatically, the projector would come on, the cameras would come on. Basically, the system's live, the mic goes live. But on it, you could manually change which camera you wanted, you could change presets of the camera angles if you wanted. You could turn the volume up and down, same with the mics. Then we would also duplicate the controls that were over there to controls on an iPad, which we would supply. There's an app that you can get, so it would mirror all the controls on that iPad. So you don't have to get up whenever you needed to and walk over and change it. You would have it with you and it can migrate whoever feels comfortable doing it. So you can change things quickly as you saw fit. It works pretty good that way. all the equipment, essentially the brains of it, that would live in what we call a rack, basically a box that would sit in the corner. That's where all the front end, head end equipment would be housed. We would take care of all the cabling, the wire management, the training, the maintenance, comes with a 90-day bumper to bumper. Most of the equipment comes anywhere with a 1 to 3 year warranty on it itself. And then we train you, make sure that you know how to use it. But this is the type of system that essentially the pros are using. This will bring you to a next level experience that will be undoubtedly something that will show that you guys made an investment, make sure the town people can understand and hear what you're doing. So,
And with that professional sound and video, ease of use is something that's huge. Obviously, you don't want to waste time when you guys are talking, about important stuff. Wasting time trying to figure out why it's back to you and why you can hear somebody rustling papers and that kind of stuff. So some of the stuff that Jeff didn't talk about, I won't get into, but there's audio processing happening so that it's taking out any coughs in the audience or somebody ruffling papers or side conversations. All of that gets filtered out. If somebody's speaking very quietly into the mic, it gains that up. If somebody's right in front of it being loud because they're getting excited, it gains that down. So it's doing all of that logic behind the scenes without you even having to touch it. And so your people at home and people in here are getting a much better experience without you having to spend a bunch of time messing with it. It's very easy to use. And like Jeff said, the training that's just part of it.
so that's this space in a nutshell. The other two spaces that we looked at were the library space. One of which is the event room. The event room is very similar to how we designed this system with a couple caveats, a couple things that we see. We would get rid of the confidence monitor, so you wouldn't have that there. The ceiling's not as high, so the screen would be smaller. We have to condense it down a little bit because we need the bottom of it still to be above the heads of the people that are in the front row. But in that system, one of the things that would be an upgrade over what we would do in this space would be the mics themselves. Gooseneck mics would actually be wireless rather than wired. So in this fashion, this setup doesn't seem to change very often. So the wired situation is okay. It'd be a little cleaner, but the wire's fine. In the event space, though, that seating arrangement changes all the time. Even when we were there was nothing there. It was completely wide open. So they would actually bring in tables and then rearrange those. So the mics need to be a little bit more flexible. But the wireless mics themselves are about a $10,000 upgrade. One we could look to do here too, but it wasn't a necessary, it was kind of a nice to have. We thought it'd be better fit to tackle the basics that still needed some massive improvement, so. You have questions?
Yeah. The mics that you're gonna essentially installing, are they anything like this? Are we, when you wanna talk, is it auto sensing that I'm talking and then shutting stuff off? Or was there a button to hit, turn it back on? And you wouldn't be installing any boom mics or anything like that?
That's correct. It would just be the gooseneck, what they call a gooseneck style microphones, which is typical in a boardroom setup. They are push to talk. So they are muted all the time, and you can push them to talk, or we can flip that and have them so that they're on all the time and push them. But yeah, they are.
Yeah, but they are basically auto sensing as you already described. I mean, somebody's talking, you kind of can regulate to their voice.
Yes, yeah, so in that regard, it's not turning the microphone on and off for you, but it is absolutely regulating everything it's picking up.
Right.
And these microphones have lots of issues with feedback.
Yep.
So we wouldn't have that sort of issue.
100%. They have automatic feedback suppression, so the system physically looks at where that feedback is coming from and swap it all automatically. Right now, you would have to physically do that on that console.
One question I have, how do these get integrated into either Zoom or recorded so we can put them in the archives, or is that stuff all done automatically?
It's done through the software, through Zoom, so you would record your meeting in Zoom. But the biggest thing is that all of your audio, video, is all integrated with that. So, All of those camera feeds would get recorded in that Zoom call. All of the high-end audio gets recorded in that Zoom call. So the physical recording, you can do it on a separate machine, but typically speaking, it's done in the software, in Zoom when you record. You're just getting all the high-end audio and video from your gear.
Okay. It's become more of a standard when most entities are using these types of spaces. The only real difference is sometimes instead of laptops they bring in, there might be a dedicated PC that lives like in the rack. And they might have a wireless keyboard and mouse that operate it. It just sort of depends.
Your question, Andy?
Yeah, I have two questions. One is, if we have a large screen back here, so, our citizens can see the screen, I would be a little concerned about having a small screen out there for us to see the screen. Okay, and then the other issue is, there needs to be, I would think, some way for the presenters, for instance, to interact. In other words, in this case, Pat's trying to show us, the areas on the map. Okay, and the logic behind what she did. She would need some way to direct a mouse pointer, or something.
Sure, so, there's a couple different ways that typically people in this environment would share content. One of which would be, you would join the meeting with your laptop or your device. So you want to make sure you mute your mics and your speakers on it, and then you would just share content remotely. That's like what 90% of our boardrooms and training rooms and facilities are doing today. Another way that we could essentially do it is using the barcode click share devices. For presenting, if you want to share something, you just click it into your device. It has a little button that you push. Jackson Lab loves them. They have like hundreds of them throughout their facilities. But there's a way that they can wirelessly share content from their device as well. So there's several different ways we can ingest that information into the system that then would show up behind you on the big screen. And then the location of that display itself can, we can be flexible, of course, on where it would go, but it's noticeably larger than the display that you have behind you. And if it needs to be brought forward a little and tilted, it'd be angled so that it would be easy for you folks to view from the current position that you're in. Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
Thank you.
I think it's 75 inch TV is probably gonna be big enough for us to look at there versus me turning my head and looking at that screen behind us. So I think it's just gonna be a projector screen here for the folks, in the audience, so.
This confidence monitor will be big enough for you
Yeah.
guys to see the content
Correct.
very well.
Who's talking?
Yeah.
We have a team of engineers. There's a few things that they look at, one of which is the size of the space and then how far away the furthest viewers need to be from the content. And then the typical content being viewed on it, whether it's like a TV show, an Excel spreadsheet, those kind of dictate more like how big the screen size is supposed to be. And then the next thing that dictates it goes to budget. And so I'm trying to find a blend of those two. But I think in this case, you're able to nail out the screen sizes that would be appropriate for it.
So just to give you guys an idea on budget too, we do a bunch of different town hall spaces. Our latest one was in Wells. Again, this is an extreme case, but just to give you an idea, they were around 150,000 for their town meeting. They had a lot of other stuff in there, streaming devices and that kind of stuff. But just to kind of give you an idea of the spectrum of dollar wise, what that looks like.
Single courtrooms range usually anywhere from 80 to 250,000, depending on how many displays and how many microphones you use each space. Of the cost, whatever the rooms you're looking at, so I think this space is somewhere around 60. Usually for any of the spaces, you can almost just run the number. It's about 2/3 of it is equipment cost, hardware, cabling, everything that lives in the rack displays, the screens, and then 1/3 of it is typically the labor. There's a number of special areas. If you look at the quote itself, there's broken out line items for, commissioning, programming, engineering, installation, training. Those buckets all represent certain individuals that we keep on staff, that we can sort of schedule and coordinate those times on site. And that's sort of how we quote that out, if you will, and make sure that we have the appropriate resources for each of the spaces. So there are about a dozen or so heads in our company that can do this.
Great question.
If you're comfortable, I'm comfortable with saying, go ahead and make the request for the RFP. I said, I think I'm comfortable saying that we should go ahead and make the request for the RFP.
Yeah.
At this time.
Yeah. Other councilors?
Have we applied for the grant yet?
We have not, so,
Just the town one.
yeah, what we would do is, first of all, we worried about this one first and foremost. And so we issued an RFP just for this space. We'd apply for the hometown grant. We wanted to get your interest, first of all, to see if this is something you're even interested in before we apply for the grant. Then we'll apply for the grant. If we get the grant, then we'll issue the RFP for that as well.
Oh, I think anybody that has Zoomed the town council meeting, including myself, knows how painful it is. With the intermittent signals and lack of being able to hear or visualize anything. I think there's a need for it. I'd like to explore the grant opportunities prior to getting involved with $150,000 purchase.
Well, and again, so what we're recommending is, I guess it depends upon what you want to invest in. So what we were thinking is we do $60,000 somewhere in that neighborhood of ARPA funds in order to pay for this room. And then we'd explore the grant for the library space. Now, if you said, no, Wilson, we want you to seek the hometown grant for this space, and then we'll cover the difference. We could do that, but just understanding that that would sort of not leave us any options if we're not going to use ARPA funds for this sort of project.
I kind of think we should proceed at least with this space using the ARPA funds. And in parallel, we can apply for a grant. You can't get paid. If you've already paid yourself, the grant won't cover it, but maybe we'll get lucky. If not, we go to the library with the grant.
Yeah, I would do that. I would do the ARPA funds with this room and then apply for a grant for the library.
I'm cool with that.
If you just do a combined RFP with 2 line items, one for this room and one for the library, and then be able to separate it out.
We can do that. Most definitely.
Yeah, I got one other technical question. You mentioned it, and I was listening and I was looking back at it. I've dabbled a little bit, so I kind of understand it a little bit. So we were talking about the projector, the laser projector. I guess I don't have those, so we constantly have to deal with bulbs. So tell me a little bit about that. You say you don't have to replace the bulb in something with this system?
Yeah,
So how's it work?
Yep, no bulb, so a lot of the older classroom systems, with time, the downside of bulbs is that eventually they would slowly drop off and eventually you can almost see what's there, but you live with them long enough that you almost don't recognize how much drop off you had. Eventually you replace the bulb and you're like, oh my goodness, it's almost bright. So laser modules don't work that way. So out of the box are super bright, they turn on quick, they stay bright, and their laser modules are designed pretty much, I think this one, along with the ones that we're recommending for your classrooms here as well. They have a lifespan of about 20,000 hours. So even with just average use, most folks are looking to get 10+ years. We usually recommend that folks will refresh 5 to 7, but it's not uncommon that end users are trying to get 10, 12 out of them. And those laser modules will allow for an extended lifespan to do that.
It's like almost life expectancy of a bulb projector. One of the other things Jeff mentioned was, spend on time, some of the things that we, especially with the large mega projectors that we run into, we physically have to put timers in the control system so that people don't sit there and just hit buttons. Because it takes a while for that projector to turn on and warm up.
Cool down.
Yeah, and so, laser projectors are almost instant. They come right out and they're just a lot better. First basement.
The other advantage of not having the bulb is just physically where it is. You usually mount them high, so if you have to change the bulb, you get a ladder or to get up to it, change out it, you don't have to worry about that.
So the stack you'd be putting over in the corner.
Yep.
What is the maintenance contract on that? You mentioned something's years, 3 years, or what's usually a standard maintenance contract on the stack that's gonna split the corner?
So in itself, it's 90 days, bumper to bumper, it covers all equipment, it covers, labor. Manufacturer warranties themselves are typically 1 year to 3 years, depending on the component piece. There is a broker that can be added as well that will extend basically that 90 day to a full year, and it's based on equipment costs. So we haven't calculated it out. I want to say it's usually around 7 or 8%, I think, of whatever the hardware cost is. Added to it, so we can add that in if you want. So this quote is sort of like a starting point, if you will.
Yeah,
How it's off the ground and running. So those are options if you include them in the RFP. You can absolutely include it. It's just a click of a button to add it if you want to extend that.
the cabling in here, we just basically put in some conduit and running it across everywhere.
Yeah, we try to keep it as minimal as possible. We would do pendant style speakers.
Yeah.
So they would hang down. We typically would run, conduit up and across, like where your beams are, so that it's hidden and as clean as possible. We run everything down in a nice sleeve into the corner with a sack. Yep.
Cool, thanks.
All right, thank you very much for your information. So as far as the council goes, pursuing RFPs, are we looking at doing something like that with, with the grant? As well? Yeah, you have a question in the audience?
So I just want one question here. Does the software allow them law enforcement to do a search? Like, we have an event that I want to go there time on that. Does the software allow us to search that?
If it was recorded, yeah, it's gonna be whatever.
That's where I'm next. Does this come with a computer system that backs it up and stores it? Or does it not?
It does not. So we are basically just providing the equipment, to extend the meeting. Zoom or Teams software is going to be 100%, you know,
the application
and maintained by you. So you would have no part of that software. Yeah, there's no, in some like, basically all state of Maine rooms, they provide a PC that lives in the rack. That they maintain, they provide, you guys don't necessarily have that here, this is it's bring your own device, so it would be a laptop. But even if you guys did have a PC, it's just be, 45 to 10.
I think, I brought that up because I think that's an important feature for them to have and realize that they need.
You can certainly do that in a recording.
Yeah. It's Jeff and Jake.
Jeff and Jake.
All right, thank you very much.
You guys.
Thank you guys.
One more question.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
What's the cost, like, you said about it, so what's the cost of going from 9 gigs to
I want to say it's about 8% of the, so if, you know, of the 60,000 for this room, about, I want to say it's 38,000, so I think it's the hardware component doing, I want to say it's about 8% of that.
So I have is that, for your operation, with the 6,200. There's less than 100 people here. We really cost effective to spend $60,000 for you to give them.
Wait, you not?
I didn't figure spending $6,000 or more than you're going to the library. It's really cost effective. You get a grant, is it really cost effective to do that? There's what, 6 people online, plus 100 people here, and there's what, 6,500 people in Lincoln? That's not cost effective.
You may have a lot of people that don't attend too because they can't hear what's going on. And it's not
say,
so we certainly think it is worth it.
And they are recorded on YouTube, so you can go to YouTube anytime and watch the entire council meeting.
Right, I understand that, but I mean.
I don't know what
A lot of people do that after the fact, it just.
I watched one from December 5th. Well,
What's that?
I watched one from December 5th.
Yeah, this system will improve the quality of those videos.
audio and visual.
No, I understand, I don't understand, but for less than 100 people showing up at the town meeting. What was it? That's not cost effective at all. Anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next discussion. Item 232, the discussion of accepting Rambler Road as a town road.
Yes, and so again, we're not seeking any action tonight, just some guidance about the potential acceptance of Rambler Road. So for those of you who don't know, Rambler Road is in fact not a town road. It's, for all intents and purposes, a private road that's owned by the school system. And increasingly, we've been concerned because of the rate of speed of some of the motorists on Rambler Road, that eventually we're going to have an accident involving pedestrians. And so the police department, the school system, the town manager have been meeting to see what we might be able to do about this. Because here's the concern, because Rambler Road is not a town road. Even though there's a posting on there of 15 miles per hour, our police department does not have the authority to actually issue any citations for someone who might be speeding on that. So they can stop them, warn them, but they can't issue any citations. And so the way that we change that is we accept Rambler Road as a town road. Now, I've heard two different stories here. One is that apparently it wasn't accepted as a town road at the time because it didn't meet DOT specs. The DOT says that they see no reason why it can't be a town road. On Friday, we received a message that the reason it wasn't accepted as a town road is because it didn't meet the specs of the town's road ordinance. And I don't know whether that's true or not. I assume that it is, but even if it's not, there is a provision within that ordinance dating back to 1995 that would allow you to waive those specifications if it's in the public interest. And I think we can all agree that that is a heavily traveled road by which students and teachers get to school, to and from school each day. And so, I would argue that it's certainly a public interest to have that as a town road. So we went to, the other thing I would say about this too is, the argument for not doing it is, well, that's a school road. Eventually it's going to need to be repaved. And when I first came to Winthrop and I drove down Rambler Road, I thought, my gosh, this is a really terrible road for getting to and from your schools. But eventually it is going to be repaved. And some might argue, well, that should be a school district cost versus a town cost. And I think I would probably counter that argument by saying, technically the school is a town department. The money is all coming from our taxpayers. It's 6 to 1, half dozen to the other in that regard. So
pay for it one way or the other.
Exactly. And so I sought the town attorney's guidance on this, and we included that as an addendum to the background memo. And there are some ways that we can go about doing that. He proposes a simpler way. There's a complex way, and there's a simple way. He's proposing the simpler way. So what we're here tonight is just to determine whether or not you're interested in us investigating further, exploring what that might entail, and moving towards the acceptance of Rambler Road as a town road. And as I said, our school superintendent, our transportation director from the schools, and our police chief are here, and so we'll try to answer any questions you might have.
What does that change for operations? Other than just the police being able to enforce speed?
Well, we have our public works director here too, and I don't think that it changes at all because we're already plowing Rambler Road, correct?
Wow, and sand and make it.
So it doesn't change anything that we're doing right now? Okay.
I did some measurements on the day. In today's hot prices, we're looking at probably around 90,000. So we paid that from 133 all the way to
Yeah, but we don't have to do that. It's 90,000 whether it's owned by the school or whether it's owned by the town.
Right. And so if it is accepted as a town road, I mean, eventually what we would do is, we would include it as one of our annual paving projects.
Is there any reason why we just can't make a motion to go ahead with that now?
Yeah, there is a legal process involved. So there's some legal hoops we have to jump through.
I understand that. I was talking about a motion to ask you to proceed with that legal process.
Oh, I think you can do that without a motion. As I said, we're just here to get some guidance from the council. If this is something you want us to do.
My guidance is good.
I got a question about the road itself. I mean, it's pretty narrow and whatnot. Do we ever see ourselves, Matt, like to make it wider or improve it or put a sidewalk down alongside it? So kids could walk along there or do something with Charles Street? Is there an option you could ever expand?
I don't know why there wasn't a sidewalk.
Right.
But I mean, there's nothing on a long plan for educating that for.
Is there anything, and I know why we didn't go up to Charles Street because the residents didn't really want us to, but is there any way for us to do that? Because I'd love to see that be one-way road down. No.
Yeah, I'm gonna let some folks who have a longer institutional memory than I do speak to that. So Chief, Jim, either of you guys want to talk to that?
It was kind of the elephant in the room the last time I brought it up, so I'd be anxious to hear the explanation.
Well, Charles Street's a residential street, and, you know, it is tough to regulate speed.
Well, it was always the road to the middle school.
It was a
For years, and I know it increased traffic, I just thought it'd be a one-way road up and be easier in and out on two different entrances, and then just make it smoother and the kids walk, what's the future look like there?
It would solve, if you made the road coming down from the high school one way, it would allow room for a sidewalk and bicycle path.
It would also eliminate some of the congestion turning in or out at the end of Rainbow Road.
I can speak just from my knowledge that I've acquired over the years here. I wasn't in any of the meetings that were included, to make that determination. I do know that there was a promise from a previous superintendent to the community of Charleston that road would be gated off, it would not be a throughway to the new school. I don't know whether there is anything put in writing in regards to this. More of they had informal meetings when they go to the school, in the high school up there. And that was the promise that was made to them, so.
Thank you, Paul.
Can I say something? Yeah, if we made, I guess I actually have a daughter that lives on Charles Street, so I'm cautious. However, if we made Charles Street one way going up, and we're careful about our speed limits, I think that it would, as it is now, there's a high volume of pedestrian traffic on Charles Street. So I think that would be a good thing to do, just go around, like Roy said. I don't have an objection to that. We don't have better our PDs that enforce the speed limit, so
The only complication I see of that, Andy, is the residents of Charles Street, if it's a one-way street. In order for them to exit the street, they've got to go all the way up around by the school and out the other entrance.
You'd have to.
That would be a
sign up by the gate or something.
It's not gonna work.
No, it would be awful.
We have a resident, state your name, please.
I'm Brian Keezer, and I would just ask that if this, topic ever gets to, talking about speed limits in school zones, that you put a request in the DOT, to do a thorough review of the roadway. Because I would argue that school speed limit of 15, question whether it should come into effect as soon as you turn on the road. I challenge all of you guys to drive it and drive it at 15 and see how it feels to you as you come on the road. It's tough, it's a tough speed to go, and we want the school zone limited as much as possible, to as effective as possible. And I would argue that the 15 should probably come into effect a couple hundred feet before the actual high school parking lot. Maybe the flashing sign up there. But the DOT can help with recommendations, they can help with sign size. The current 15-mile-per-hour signs, they don't meet any standard. I question whether they're even enforceable right now. So I think DOT could be helpful in that aspect as far as we start to look at the school zone and the sign and all that. So.
Well, and having the DOT do that sort of study, Mr. Keezer, is not only a good idea, it's actually the law. So DOT is the one that determines what our speed limits are on our local streets. And they do that after doing, traffic and engineering studies, to determine, just like you said, when it's appropriate for it to be 25 versus 15 and where the school zone should be. And so if we were to accept it as a town road, that is something that would be required. So we would look to the DOT to be the one who would actually establish what the speed limit is on that road.
One other comment. If we do incorporate that into a town road and we approach repaving, you schooled me a little bit about speed bumps and speed humps. And maybe at that time of repaving, we can engineer something in there to inhibit speeding excessively going up Randwood Road.
Awesome.
All right, so it sounds like we're going to start exploring with our town attorney the process.
Yes, thank you. All right, moving on to item 233, discussion with Superintendent Jim Hodgkin about the 2024-25 with their public schools budget. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. My name is Jim Hodgkin. I'm the superintendent of schools here in Winthrop. And I just want to share some information as we're preparing our budget. We talked about it throughout the year, but particularly we get after September, October, November to start the budget process in earnest. And really start looking at some of the areas that we're looking to possibly put into the budget and what our goals are, the school system where we think we need to make improvements. Just by comparison, when I was hired 4 years ago, the school would be crystal clear to me that they just completed a pretty comprehensive facility study and spent a fair amount of money doing that, and felt that the buildings have been neglected for a lot of years, and that upgrading the facilities was being my top priority. So that's what we've done. I mean, we've made great use of our ESSER funds and put in over $2 million into the buildings, boilers, roofs, ventilation, not ventilation, well, yes, ventilation on some level, with our O2 devices and such. But anyway, that's sort of a little bit behind us. So we really have identified two areas that are we're concerned about. My goal here tonight isn't to be an alarmist or whatever, but just to let you know, give you some advanced warning of what we see as budget obstacles. And the first one is that there is legislation pending that moves the minimum teacher salary, basic teacher salary, from presently 40,000 to 50,000. It is in the queue. It's a carryover bill. My guess is going to be that it's probably not going to pass in this next session. But I've been here long enough to remember when they put 30,000 in place. It took a couple years to get that through. Then they moved to 40,000 not much longer after that, and that took a couple years to get it through. So my suspicion is that's going to happen here. But there does seem to be pretty a great deal of support for changing that to 50,000. So we felt that it would be really irresponsible for us to look at putting together a budget without that consideration. In addition to the fact that we are still in the bottom half of salaries for the Henry County area and the schools that I have to take a look at, or what I would call it, for staff. And so our current minimum salary is 40,500, slightly above what we said it has to be, but everybody else is even more above where we're at. So we really just feel like I don't know how much we can do in terms of moving it forward, but we're not going to go from 40,500 to 50,000 in a year or two. It's going to take some planning. Right now, the current legislation is calling for that implementation to be 2028. So it gives us 40 years to do it. And you can do the math in your head that if we just did the minimum, we would get all $2,500 increase to the base every year. And obviously, if you have a triple up effect, if you increase the base, all the rest of the salaries go up as well. So it's not just simply saying you're going to add $2,500 to the scale, or $2,500 to we have about 70 salaried employees, and it isn't just that simple. And related to that, and I can't speak too much about this because I think most of them for negotiations. We are in negotiations right now with our teachers, so I can't really have a public conversation about what those negotiations look at. But we already know what it look like. The teachers are fully aware, made fully aware of the pending legislation, fully aware of where we stand right now, and so it's it's gonna be something we're gonna have to negotiate, with them. The second thing, and I think, more pressing right now is, as I mentioned when I first came here, I was asked to focus on facilities and getting the facilities moving in the right direction. And I said, we're not done. We never really done with facilities, but, the other thing that has certainly, risen over the last 3 or 4 years is our decline in our test scores. And that could be a great concern to everybody. It certainly is to me and, our school board and our administrative team. So as we're focusing on that, we're looking at staffing. It's one of the things we regularly do as part of our budget prep. And, having some conversations, as I've been looking what the struggles have been over the past 3 or 4 years with staffing. And primarily we seem to have the biggest, what we sort of settled on as the administrative team is that the biggest issue is at the middle school. And so I included it here. Having a hard time finding, historical data, which my board's gonna want, undoubtedly want as well. But talking to people one who is a parent, happens to be the president principal up there. When the president whose children all went through our school system, and the former principal that was up there for a long time before her. They both recall that there was a time when they were 5, 4 teachers. And I hesitate to use that word, but it's kind of what we say, that was at the time, reading, writing, social studies, science, and math. So there were 4 teachers in every grade level. So we have 3 grade levels there, 5, 4 teachers in each area, it's 15. There are presently 10. And that's happened over the last 12, slightly more than 12 years. I don't think it's coincidental. We don't think it's coincidental that it also aligns with when scores started to drop. So now we have, well, we only have 2 math teachers, well, 2 science teachers, 2 social studies teachers. So they teach multiple grade levels. That in and of itself is not a big deal because we can look at the structures. But the other thing that is related to that, it's not nearly as a point for us, is that I refer to as unified art, people call them different things like physics, art, music, drama, drama. There was a time when the middle school had all of those teachers on board and not sharing them with the high school. Now, the only thing we don't share with the high school is physics and art. We have our full-time phys teacher, full-time art teacher. Everything else is shared. Again, that's not terribly unusual, but it's always an additional, middle school where I spent most of my career, has always an additional stressor on the middle school. Because the high school, we credit you reporting towards your diploma, they need something at a certain time, they get sort of the first bite in the apple. So the staff, they need it, whatever's left over the middle school can use. That puts a real constraint on the ability to schedule at the middle school. So even though we're not full-time, we have pretty much everything that we would hope to have for unified art at the middle school, except we don't have any help. We teach help here in grade school, we teach help at the high school. We have 3 years where they have no help at the middle school. And that's really the real concern for us, particularly right now with everything that's going on with our ADs and development. So I can say we're going to start the budget. They pretty much guarantee we're going to ask for 4 teachers and a unified arts teacher, probably a helpful person to do that. That's 3. That's a lot of teachers to ask for in 1 year. And again, we may or may not be able to do that, but I wanted you guys to be aware of what our obstacles are, what our issues are in terms of dealing with stuff.
Couple things. First of all, I know I'm aware of this $50,000 teacher salary bill that's in there. Where's MEA on this? Do they not
are they not pushing for funding at the state level
Yeah.
on this?
Yeah,
Or are they just not doing anything at all?
no, there is a fiscal note attached to.
Oh, yes, there is.
I have-
It's very high.
Yeah, and I have that here.
I know that.
But it's, again, it's, those who've been involved with the legislation, I know what we have. It's so hard to predict what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I get
And they're
that.
always gonna put in a fiscal note, which almost never ends up being what occurs. Our biggest fear as a group of superintendents, starting at the level, is that this may not become a fully, unfunded mandate. But it's hard for us to imagine, and they actually say in their, the fiscal note. Says, although not addressed in the bill, incrementally increasing minimum salary threshold for pressure on SAUs to raise salaries for other employees who are already above the minimum. Any additional salary increases SAUs may choose to provide and be fully funded by SAUs. Thus, unless the Commissioner of Education recommends adjusting the salary matrix, which is possible, but it's not likely. And I guess I can't count on that happening. So the MEA obviously is fully supportive of raising the minimum salary, and.
And one other question. How many, I actually have a couple questions. How many kids is there an increase in kids at the middle school?
The number of students for the system has kind of leveled off.
Right, I figured
And
it.
actually slowly increasing. It was, when I first came in, it was a pattern of decreasing. We lost quite a few during COVID that haven't necessarily come back, but our numbers have stayed about the same. We're about 820. And
what's the classroom size on all of those classes?
well, that's a great question, because at the grade school and the high school, our numbers is actually wanting to probably average around 14. And at the middle school, it's probably averaging closer to 18 to 20, particularly in social studies and science. And if you're going to look for an area where you want to try to keep the class size down, science would be it. And they have the biggest class size at the middle school.
And the other thing I was gonna ask you is last question. Has there been discussions at the state level, or not even at the state level, amongst schools across the state? Are there classrooms that they can set up that are remote classrooms, where remote teachers, for different things that are not just the core subjects, that are like health? You get on the screen, you see a teacher, they're teaching. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there because the costs are like escalating all the time. Is there a way to reduce those costs for certain types of programs or classes that, can you do that? I mean, are they doing it around the country? I'm just curious.
Not so much for something that would be, like health probably is not a good example, but I can tell you that I'm the executive director for the Regional Service Center for this area, which includes Miranda and RSU2 and us. And our principals are already engaged, our high school principals are already engaged in the conversation about doing exactly what you're talking about. We can't hire enough foreign language teachers, but if we just had one foreign language teacher in 3, that's, I think a very real possibility. I think we'll be seeing that happening here within a year or 2.
I think it's smart, and I think if you can't find the teachers, you're gonna have to move to that model anyway at some point.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it saves the taxpayers money. One teacher for 3 or 4 districts,
Yeah.
and they're still getting the class, they're still in the classroom.
I meant to pass this out first, and actually that shows that I'm losing touch with my teaching group, because you never pass stuff out, because you lose the audience when you do that. But this goes back to my first point. I mentioned this to you last year. I'm going to give you the actual data tonight. That Superintendent and Gardner, whatever matter she put together this data for us last year. It's not available yet this year. I'm curious to see what the changes are. But it looks at all of the per pupil costs for all 11 areas of the budget. I didn't do, well, first of all, I didn't do CPE because we don't RCT, our career technical education money goes directly to government, so we didn't, it's not even part of our budget. But I didn't do debt service and all of it, because those are very small. And they're all over the place. Not everybody has debt, not everybody has any of those other things. So basically, you look at regular instruction, which is our biggest area, special ed instruction, which is our second biggest area, other instruction, student and staff support, system administration, school administration, transportation, operations, maintenance. And she compared it to 12 schools and saw where we ranked. And I shared this with my school board last year, and I brought it up again. We ranked 10th in the Kennebec Valley area, not Kennebec County, Kennebec Valley area, per pupil expenditures in total. Now, some people might hear this and she's done a great job with keeping the cost down. To me, we're $2,000 below the state average per pupil cost times 820 kids. That's almost $1.9 million that we are below the state average. Now, I'm not aspiring. I'm not even. I'm just sharing information with you. Please know that it's not my goal, nor the school boards that I'm aware of, goal to try to even at the state average, because there's only one school in the entire Kennebec Valley area that's at or above the state average. So that's not our goal. But our goal also isn't to be 10 out of 12. It comes to how we support our students. So I'm going to give this to you in the park. Out here is where we rank out of those 12 schools. Yeah.
Yes.
But again, this my meeting tonight is I'm not looking for any points or anything like that, because we're trying to figure out what we can do as we develop this budget, and I suspect it's going to be a challenge. Then trying to what are we going to do? How are we going to share this information with the community? Can I have one of those back?
Yeah.
Can I have one that has my scribbling on it?
Thank you.
Thanks. Nobody has one that has my writing on it? Sorry. You're not going to tell me.
Get your back down.
Aaron, did you?
Yeah, I was just gonna give some historical context. Roy, Shannon, and myself went through the middle school when all those teachers were in place. Matter of fact, I was here in this room when they made the decision to duplicate, start making the music teacher go to the middle school, and then it was the art teacher, and then it was supposed to be temporary. And I was here, and I remember the negotiations that were ongoing with the union at the time. It was pretty brutal. So I can definitely say that we are aware of how it used to be, and I know I was here when they negotiated those arrangements, which were not pleasant for the current teachers at the time, but they did it, and it was actually the older teachers who did it to let the younger teachers get raises. So I do remember that, and so just so you know, there's context.
And you do also need to know that you will remind us, and I'm sure that we go through this process, that I've been in a number of different school systems. Even though we're 10 out of 12 schools, the tax burden from school, from the whole the taxpayers, is pretty substantial. So people are pretty aware of that. And our job is to do the best we can to keep moving this forward without making it unbearable for the taxpayers. There's one other thing to be answered. Any other questions on this first?
Have you, can we gradually increase over the next 4 years when this legislation is supposed to mandate?
Yeah, that's what I'm just saying. Like, this is the challenge. We're not going to answer it. One else is going to. I think we need to look at. Well, first of all, the legislation has to pass, but even if it doesn't, we're going to have. We're negotiating, so it's probably going to be some sort of increase. But yeah, we're not going to. It's not even reasonable to think about that. So I just want you guys to all be aware of what we sort of uncovered and what we're together. And we'll try to get as much as we can that people can support.
Can I just tell you that fiscal note's an enormous fiscal note, this is one last year.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Anything else from any of the councilors? Questions?
I do have a question on a separate note.
Like you, one I'm already.
I'll let you go and then I'll.
You can get the copy of this if you want, but Linda's exactly right. 3.5 million, then almost 6 million, and then almost 9 million. It's a 3-year, if it goes that way. So the other thing that I was told, was some interest in, and I'm happy to do this, is to update you on, our electric buses. That it? Yeah. So I came well prepared, this job.
Yeah, unfunded mandates at the state level aren't usually welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Josh Wheeler, Transportation Director for Windsor Public Schools. I think you're all probably well aware of the fact at this point in time that we've had immeasurable problems with the electric bus fleet. I'd like to start out by saying that I am a huge proponent of electric vehicles, at least in concept. I think it's a great concept. On paper, it works well. In fact, I'm kind of an EV hobbyist. But I will say that from a safety and reliability standpoint, this particular portion of our fleet that we've acquired this year has been incredibly problematic. Right from the very beginning, the buses arrived in our bus yard looking good. The fact that the lettering that was done at the factory was literally crooked, was incorrect, it wasn't legal. I had to actually hire a graphics contractor to come in and review the letter and even make it legally compliant. Not to mention aesthetically pleasing. I didn't want to put buses on the road that was foolish. Next immediate issue that we ran into after that was state police came to do their inspections. In case you don't know, school buses were subject to 2 different lines of inspection. Standard motor vehicle inspection, just like any of our vehicles are, commercial, of course. And then also state police come to us to perform their own independent inspections. And even with somewhere between 100 and 300 miles on these buses, some less than that, we were right on the tipping point of not passing state police inspection. So basically what that should say is that these buses came to us uninspected. The issues that the inspectors found that they came to look at them were things that shouldn't be a problem in a new vehicle, shouldn't be a problem in a 10-year-old vehicle. These are things that should have been predicted and sort of addressed before these vehicles were delivered to us. Things like corrosion. They're using copper brake lines. The brake lines were corroded, and the inspector, Bill Atkinson, who's a great guy, the state police inspector, said, he said, I realize these are brand new vehicles. He said, we're gonna pass them today, but I'm telling you right now, they're not gonna pass at our next inspection. So that was a significant setback for us. Basically, once we figured that out, we sort of started becoming on alert, the fact that these vehicles aren't quite what they were promised to us. Shortly thereafter, we started having electrical issues. The electrical issues, of course, are complex and immense because they're electric vehicles to begin with. But also, given the fact that these vehicles had significant water leaks, some of in case you don't know, the fiberglass, or the bus bodies are all fiberglass. And the way that they connect the body panels and the way that they sort of fiberglass weld these panels is something that is really easy to be done in a very controlled fashion. Long story short, it's not. So between the bonding of the fiberglass body panels and the way that the glass and exterior trim pieces are attached, they literally leak like six. 2 of them in particular were so bad that we had to immediately pull them out of service. The first day it rained, we're literally getting back inside of glass. So they had to be pulled out of service. The technician said, yeah, don't run them because it's not safe. Obviously, water and electricity don't mix. There really isn't a concern in that respect as far as, the high voltage side of the vehicle interacting with water. It's not so much that. It's about water coming in, draining in through the windshields, running directly down into the dashboard, getting onto the electronic components, that sort of thing. causing shorts and causing blower motors and relays and switches and that sort of thing to fail. So that was an ongoing issue. So as soon as all these issues started coming up, Jim and I had some lengthy conversations about the fact that we needed to make a move, to get ourselves ready to start school. Because by the time all of these issues began to surface, we're now a couple of weeks before school started, and we were gonna be 4 vehicles short. So I pulled some strings and was able to get some buses rented and to your bus line. Thankfully, because we would have been in some pretty serious hot water without them. The problem with that is that these buses that we're renting are costing us somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 a month. Because 3 buses, with rental costs, with food costs, with mileage costs, and that sort of thing. Now, Lion Electric is the company that manufactures our electric buses. They have agreed in writing to reimburse us for these rental costs. However, to my knowledge, we haven't seen this yet. They've also agreed to reimburse us for the cost of the graphics, lettering, and so forth that we had to have corrected. Legally compliant. Have not seen that reimbursement yet either. Lion has suffered a tremendous cage rattling, if you will, over the past few months, because we're not the only district that has had these issues. The issues just seem to be continually getting worse and worse, and this has become a far and wide problem with vehicles across the state. As recently as this morning, I actually had a meeting with a representative from the governor's office, a representative from the DOE, and myself, and a representative from the Maine Association of Youth Transport to discuss our problems specifically within this district. And the problems that I presented them with, they were flabbergasted, although some of them, particularly the gentleman from the Maine Association of Youth Transport, he's also a transportation director that has some of these vehicles in this fleet. Identical problem. So, yeah.
How much does this gonna cost? How much is this costing? Did it cost us to buy those buses?
So these were purchased on an EPA grant.
Okay, so this is not money out of our pocket.
Correct. However, it is important to know that these vehicles are $380,000. We have 4 of them. A typical traditional conventional school bus is somewhere around 120,000. So you're looking at roughly triple the cost. Then you tack on, we're about 120,000 for the chargers right now, which incidentally was mostly included in the grant as well. So we're looking at a significant amount of money. Granted, even though it's federal money and grant money, we're still looking at a significant amount of money that is essentially considered, right? So for what it's worth, the governor's office is well and truly on top of these issues. Jessica Scott is the lady's name. She's the governor's director on policy and innovation. The lady that I met with this morning, she was fantastic. And she is on top of this. So I felt very reassured of the fact that the governor and her representatives are well and truly aware of what's going on here. And they are actively seeking a solution from the company. Now, what that solution is, we don't quite know yet. I actually have a meeting tomorrow with the regional management of Lion to sort of talk to them about what we're seeing so that they can get a little bit better perspective on the specific issues that we're having with the vehicle, because they seem to think that these issues are just isolated to our community. And that's so absolutely untrue, because I've personally spoken to multiple of the communities that have the same problems.
And my next question is given the fact that you folks know what you know, okay, we didn't pay for the buses. What is gonna be our cost going forward? This electric bus stuff, to me, is a loser. It's a loser, it has been a loser from day one, and to me, it's like we should have stuck with buses that are traditional buses. I don't care what some of these folks, oh, they want the environmentally friendly stuff. You know what? Half this stuff doesn't work.
Right.
And I don't know what you guys are gonna do, but to me, the bigger question becomes is down the road, what are you gonna have to spend to fix this stuff?
You're absolutely right, and I completely
Cut the
agree.
losses and just get the money back and see if they'll utilize that money to buy a regular bus, not an electric bus, a normal bus.
So what you're asking for is a fantastic solution that, believe me, I have pondered in my mind many times as recently as right now. But the unfortunate part of it is this money is earmarked by the EPA for this specific purpose. And the EPA has done this because there are multiple scientifically proven reasons why this concept is helpful, right? To include diesel exhaust and that sort of thing affecting kids. And I hear you, believe me.
You know, I've been
Yeah.
dealing with
So-
these environmental, the thing is, my whole point is, if you have to drive the buses back,
Mhm.
park them and do something else, because down the road, I don't wanna see the department coming back to us and saying, we have all these costs because we don't have these buses at work.
Yep.
Because this counselor is not gonna be approving a budget with those costs in it.
600,000 right now, is all. I mean, 4 buses at $150,000. That's it. Now, is that the best answer? I don't know, but that's an answer. But the other thing to keep in mind, like I said, is it's not as simple as being able to take the 4 buses and say, you know, like returning something to Home Depot. You got 90 days. No, we've got these buses under the EPA grant. That money is earmarked for us for these buses. However, this is what the governor's office is exploring. They are exploring the option of pressing Lion legally to purchase their product back from us and from several other districts that are having similar issues. And allowing us to reallocate those funds to purchase another brand. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent, it's an option, and it's potentially a good option, because I can tell you through my own research, extensive research, there are electric buses out there that are far more reliable than the ones we have.
We've had two pretty much that have been running almost all the time, and the reviews for those are really outstanding. So I'm most encouraged by the governor being involved and saying, our message basically to the Lion is, you should not be distributing or giving other buses to the next recipients until the people who receive them have theirs taken care of. And that's kind of where things are at.
It is, you're right, it is a disaster. And, you know, the problem is, like I said, this is essentially half our fleet. And that's why we've had to supplement this with the rentals. Now, again, from Jessica in the meeting, the meeting this morning, her goal is to push Lion to buy these vehicles back, to open up that funding to purchase something else. Thomasville Buses, for instance, has a tried and true platform that has proven outstanding in the industry. That would be another option for us to look at. It wouldn't require us to change the chargers out or anything like that, and still be able to use the same charging infrastructure. It would just put us into vehicles that are far more tried and true. Because the other thing I think it's important for everybody to realize, and I'm pretty much done, is that Lion has built electric trucks for a long time. They have not built electric buses. So basically what they did is they took their electric drivetrain that they've used in countless other vehicles, mostly delivery trucks, twin axle trucks, that sort of thing. And they said, hey, let's try to wrap a bus around this drivetrain. And they tried this out, and it has been obviously an absolute immeasurable disaster. Thomas, on the other hand, and there's basically 3 big manufacturers of buses, Thomas, IC, and Bloomberg. I'm most familiar with Thomas. What they did is they took their tried and true bus platform that they had basically been improving upon for well over years. And they took that and they hired a really high-end company to build and design a really high-end electric drivetrain. They popped the diesel drivetrain out of it, put an electric drivetrain in, they tested it and tested it and tested it. They improved upon it, and then they said, here you go.
So why didn't we purchase it from them?
So
What's the cost difference?
I don't know that it's a significant cost. The difference is this, what we were looking at, and I've shared this with the council before, that our bus fleet was sold off, we had no buses, so we wanted to bring that back. We were looking at all grants, whatever, and so this fell into our lap. To get 4, well, like I mentioned, we were actually earmarked for more than that. I was sort of talking before. And the grant was with Lion as the distributor, as a manufacturer. It wasn't these others. But Josh was just, I thought it was really decided. Now, other companies are being allowed to, put in, to let you
Fulfill the
purchase
grant.
with the government's money, the $5 billion, whatever it was, that was earmarked throughout the country, it's a 5-year grant. This year, when that came our way, we didn't do it, well, we met briefly, but we didn't do anything with it based on this. And the difference between what we purchased and what was available this year was a different manufacturer. Thomas is doing it. We deal, a lot of Thomas buses in Maine are sold through Cressy. Cressy is probably the biggest distributor here in the state. We've had I personally have a long history with Cressy and people who work there. Very reputable. They've actually sold us, in addition to those buses, we purchased 3 additional buses from that are used. They lease buses, and at the end of the lease, they sell them. So we bought 3 of those, and 2 brand new, right? Well, 2 brand new through the DOE. We use Cressy as our manufacturing, our dealer. Yeah. So it's hindsight being 20/20. I think I remember standing here saying, what's worst case scenario? If all 4 of these buses fail, which I didn't think that was going to be the case. Then we haven't put out any money at all.
So we have another question or comment from Andy, and then Aaron, and then I think we can kind of wrap this up. Sure. Thank you.
So if we take these buses and the expense money continues to maintain them coming out of our pocket, and Lion doesn't reimburse us, sounds like by the time we're all said and done, we might as well gone out and bought 4 new buses.
They will reimburse it.
So,
I'm not positive, Josh said that, and you probably know it's better than I do, but I'm pretty sure it's some, if not all of that, money, and they've agreed to pay, every month that we're renting, they're gonna continue to reimburse us for those activities.
but then we still might have a piece of junk that we constantly need repair and has headaches.
Probably wouldn't go in that direction.
That's what I'm saying, I think it might be time to bail out of this thing, one way or another.
Well, they are under warranty, clearly, and they have a fairly robust warranty. I can't quote the warranty from memory, simply because it's a different level of warranty for various different systems in the vehicle. So the battery has one warranty, the drivetrain has another, that sort of thing. But it is a fairly robust warranty, but like you said, Andy, once the warranty's up, we're looking at the same problem.
Do you need?
I have a generator at my camp, and it's not running, and it's under warranty, what good's that?
Exactly.
Aaron, go ahead.
Couple things. One comment is, have you reached out to the congressional delegation? Like the senators and representatives and all?
Not yet, only because our
Governors.
first stop was the governor's office.
Because
So Cheryl Brackett is the transportation coordinator for the DOE. She put us in touch with Jessica Scott, who is the governor's, basically the governor's representative that's been dealing with this EPA grant.
Okay, because there is federal funding, right? So there's an inspector general that's going to be overseeing.
Yes.
And so there are revenues, but if you need to push, I would say the town would be more than willing to lend a letter, or I would assume Anthony would let our town attorney assist in any legal action.
And I appreciate that, and it may come to that, but I'm hoping it won't.
All right, James.
So I just got a quick comment. I just, first and foremost, I appreciate you guys coming up here. I appreciate your complete utmost honesty on this whole thing.
That was my goal.
Because, and that's, that, anything, I appreciate that, because I was, when Jim presented this to us, I was like, oh, pretty decent deal, we're getting the grant, we're getting these buses, let's give them a whirl. So, I kind of thought the same thing. I kind of, sometimes you gotta, cut bait, and run, but I know we also have $120,000 of infrastructure for charging stations up there, if we don't go there, we have just pedestals up there, right? So I think you guys are heading the right course. You don't need any advice from, obviously from me or probably anybody else in this group, is keep plugging forward and trying to nail down and get, reimbursed and actually get some buses that may do what they said they were gonna do. So thank you.
Thank you, and that is that's my hope. That we can see this through to the point where, as the governor's representative wants to do.
Yeah.
We force them to buy them back, and we experiment with them.
All right, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
All right, let's get moving here.
All right, moving on to item 234, we're going to open the public hearing for a proposed repeal of the disbursement of excess funds received from the sale of tax acquired property ordinance at 908. Are there any comments or questions?
Just a quick explanation. So obviously now we have a state law that supersedes this 2016 ordinance. It's the same process for repealing an ordinance as for enacting one. This public hearing is part of that process. So what we're recommending tonight is that you vote to repeal the process, waive the second reading, and then this ordinance will be repealed in 30 days.
Are there any comments?
I'm confused.
Confused?
They changed the law, so yeah.
All right, so we just changed the logo. What we just finished up doing our own ordinance, just the last meeting.
No, that was a policy.
Okay.
So we had to change the policy. Now we're repealing, there was actually an ordinance. So the policy was about how we sell.
Right. Okay.
Tax acquired properties. This ordinance deals with the disbursement of excess funds received from the sale of tax acquired property, which is exactly what the new state law addresses.
So what does that change? 'Cause I was trying to read it, try to understand it. So with extra funds from a sale of a property, does it go back to the original property owner?
It has to. Now it does.
Yeah, I thought that.
Yeah, now it does.
That.
So we had an ordinance in books that allowed that, but it's now superseded by the state law. So our attorney has advised us to repeal this.
Okay.
All right, if there are no further comments or questions, I will close the public hearing at 9:10.
I move to approve the repeal of the disbursement of excess funds received from sale of tax acquired property ordinance.
Second.
All in favor? Linda? All are in favor?
I move that we waive the second motion.
Second.
All in favor? That all are in favor?
Yeah.
Item 236, discussion of possibly releasing the space at Annabessett building. Like, anyone want to do something?
Yeah, so now, as you all know, we have cleared the clutter from the Annabessett building after our silent auction. It was fantastic over there, thanks to the work of our public works group. But a question's been raised about whether or not we could possibly lease some of the space to help offset the utility cost. And frankly, at this point, we don't know if we can legally do that. In fact, I just got some correspondence today with one of the environmental consultants who's been working on that. They're going back through their files to see if that's even something that is legal that we could do, depending upon if there were any restrictions when that building was transferred from the federal government to us. Back whenever that occurred. But tonight we're just here to seek some guidance from you guys as to whether or not, if that is allowed, and the consultant says we should find out by sometime next week whether or not that's allowed, if that's something you want to pursue. So right now, the larger of the buildings is used to store public works equipment. And depending upon the season, that equipment may move from that building to the garage or vice versa. The break room is used a little bit for lunchroom and for a rest space for guys who've been out plowing for a really long time during a prolonged storm. They'll go over there and catch a nap before they get back out on the roads. Matt and I talked about this. He says that if we were ever to build a new public works facility, we probably want something that's about double that size. Because you're looking at, well, could this potentially be our new public works building? And right now, there's only one access point for egress and ingress into that building. So, if we decide to release them, we have to absolutely positively make sure that we still have the access that we need to get our equipment in and out of there. Because if you were to go over there right now, you would find our street sweeper is over there. If you go over there in the summertime, you see a whole bunch of plows over there. So anyway, I know Matt has some reservations. He may want to talk about that, but we wanted to sort of get some thoughts from you as to whether or not this is something even worth pursuing.
Linda, and then Amber.
I mean, in my opinion, I guess we can find out if it's legal, but in my opinion, if we need the space, I don't think we should, so. And I think the other thing too is liability. Who's gonna, I mean.
Be like any other lease, I mean, people lease buildings all the time,
Right, but
the insurance for that.
So, extra open space tends to get used and become needed, irrespective of whether or not it needs to be. I suspected when that transfer, I was around then, when that building was given those properties to the town, that there were some restrictions, and that's why they were given to the town. And not, so it's just simply disposed of it, so that does bear a careful look before we move ahead.
Yeah, certainly, we're not gonna, if our consultants come back to us and say, no, you're not allowed to use it for that space, it must be for some sort of municipal use, then we're kind of done at that point, but. This is, again, just to get some direction from you guys, and I didn't anticipate it would take as long as it is. Getting a response from our consultants, but it is what it is.
Well, it's in order, so, yeah.
So Aaron, and then,
I was gonna ask Dan, you use that building, right?
Yeah, if you don't mind me just taking it over.
Yeah, just 1 second though, I mean, there are 2 buildings over there, and what we're talking about is a building that the fire department does not use. So the fire department has some equipment stored in one of the buildings, and they use it for training exercises on a regular basis. And so that's not the building that we're talking about, we're talking about the larger building, that's the public works.
Can I just say something quickly? There's several $100,000 worth of equipment over there, that's in that safety or facility right now, that I have no idea what that is. I mean, I don't think we really want to throw this stuff outside anywhere. You know, I don't know, and I'm not sure, we have to be able to, if I needed a street sweeper for something, or the little tractor that's over there. We use that, or sell that stuff if he needs it. You know, we've got somebody renting a bunch of space over there that they've got the door blocked, now we're over there, you know, like.
So primarily, the 2 pieces of equipment that you have over there are the street sweeper and the little tractor.
That, yes, I was told.
So essentially, those would fit in a bay. If we were to put bays in one side of that, those would fit in a bay.
Real high bays, yeah.
I'm just thinking, I look at that facility and I see a whole lot of open space unused. A whole lot of, even in the pictures that you posted,
Yeah, well,
there's a whole lot of open floor space, right?
yeah, and part of that is, of course, you have all those raised cement platforms there.
And those can go.
Well, you could, but what Matt pointed out is, we don't know what's underneath those things, so we don't know.
I don't know if the floor was, if those stanchions were poured, then the floor was poured around them, or if the floor was poured and the stanchions would. If that was the case, they would probably come out fairly easy.
I think they're gonna come out hard, I think they were poured as foundations for equipment, and the floor was poured around them. I really think they're gonna come out pretty hard.
Yeah, there's the federal government will talk about there that everything is over there.
I look at it as, they break concrete up every day for all kinds of different projects. Those can be broken down below and report over the top of them fairly easy. It costs some money to do it, but it also would provide a source of income for the building instead of being nothing but an expense for the town of a whole lot of unused space.
Yeah, but I think we'll want to find out, what would the payback on that?
Right.
That deconstruction.
I think it's worth taking a look at, right?
and what's underneath it?
Right.
We open up a can of worms and then we open up a whole
Yeah,
can.
and so that's gonna be another question is, you know, first of all, can we even use that space? And second of all,
That's definitely.
can we tear anything out of it?
That's the biggest question right there.
And another thing with that over there, we're gonna put doors in, the septic is right in front of it, right in front of that. That's private septic down there, or down there. Yeah, no, I'm saying it couldn't be moved, because it would. But that's another thing.
Is there enough space in that building to move everything that we currently have in our public works over there?
No.
So even if you did move over into that building, you would still need the other building?
That building there, and I've talked with Anthony about this, it's not centrally located enough to house the public works department.
Right.
We need something in, you know, the Cumberland Farms, to the railroad tracks, to 202, somewhere close by.
But to answer your question, not even close to being large enough.
In any case, we're still also waiting to hear back on the.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm support, I've been told we should get an answer by next week, as soon as I know something. You guys will know.
Andy?
We are assuming that we might have to remove all those big chunks of concrete and prepare it for lease. There's nothing saying that we can't offer that building out for lease, need the renovations to the new tenant. So,
Yeah, I think my only point in mentioning that was it makes it hard to store some equipment over there when you've got all these raised platforms over there. There's some, like, the street sweeper fits just fine on one of them, but you could just put the tractor anywhere else. You can put the tractor on top of one of those things.
We use like, not jack stands, but the ramps that you drive up on, to get up on, get the sweeper up on the,
Three an option, not even have to rip it out, you just pull it top of it too, let the whole damn thing right out, probably be the cheapest.
I mean, the new tenant might have a unique use and they may be able to do a workaround.
Grow rooms, you really don't care about it, but you paint plants.
You're right.
Chief Brooks, did you have anything else?
Not really, I was under the assumption we weren't talking about the building we use. That is the smaller building of the two. I will say that the sprinkler system is joining in both buildings, so the primary sprinkler system is in the main building, in that office area, and then piped over to our section of the
Is
building.
that armed or is that?
Yeah, it's operational.
Is it a dry?
Our building is dry, yes, the whole system is dry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be heated, it's what it.
Correct, only the room that the actual riser is in, that back storeroom, that has to be heated 24/7 or whatever, 365, but the rest of the system is dry.
Now, as far as the other building, how often do you train in that other building?
So we use both the inside of the building, we have multiple props inside of it. We have a floor prop, which is basically, when it was originally built, it was a concrete basement. And we boarded it over and we used it a month ago. We also have a section of it that we designed it like a house, that had a couple of bedrooms and a living room in it, so we could crawl in and crawl through that section of it. In the middle of it, we have some storage, and currently we have a dump truck. We left them park one of their trucks in there in the winter, and we move it in and out. And then we have 3 or 4 smaller props that we store down there and we use down there for different types of trainings, like a fake wall and that kind of stuff. We also use the yard quite a bit, not only the hydrant, but sometimes you'll see, in the summer when we're doing pump training, we'll put a portable water tank down there so that we can do rural water and hydrant water, and we use it for education training. It's really handy to put 2 or 3 old cars there and leave them for like 2 months and go back and forth and use it. So honestly, I would say, we have roughly 24 training sessions a year. We probably use it for maybe half of that. The key to it and why I pushed for that initially was if without that space, I have a little bit of space at the new station that was designed as a room up there that we can throw a ladder to. We can climb up the stairs and use it a little bit. So we have a little bit of space there. Otherwise, we're trying to borrow something. We're trying to use the old mill down here at the corner of it or something like that. This way, with that building, we have no setup time. We can just, if we wanted to say, all right, let's change the plans tonight, things aren't good, let's run down to Anabesco and do something. We can have 2 or 3 old cars towed in and left there for a long period of time, a couple of months or whatever, while we use them on a couple of different nights. So it just gives our training flexibility huge. It just makes it that much easier for our training ability to be able to just go down there on a dime. We don't do all our training there. We purposely don't want to be training in the same spot all the time. We like to move around. towns and different things that are done this time of year to do a training. But the fact that we can go down there really on a drop of a notice is incredibly important to us. So it doesn't, I mean, sorry, the Matt, you could rent that other part of the building out and it theoretically wouldn't affect us as long as we had some easements in place so that we could go in there and out of it. But to lose that building, it would be a pretty big asset loss to the fire department, to be honest. But I get it.
Okay, Aaron, and then James. You have something?
So my question would be, I don't know exactly, it's been a long time since I've been down there. Space wise, is this anything other municipalities could, you know, could we say, hey, we have extra space if we need, or even the state DOC, if we had a need, that we could then say, hey, if you want to throw in some money or something, you can park this here or whatever. Is that another option that's possible?
I've never, as long as I've been around, that I would have at least any about properties or anything that I had.
Okay.
So Dan, I had the pleasure to go down and check the buildings out, and I'll just say it plainly, that one building, what the hell, get a dump truck in there, can you put a lot of that shit in the dump truck and get it out of there, because it looked like a lot of stuff that was just old crap kicking around
Most of the
that
stuff,
needs to go.
most of the stuff that's behind the dump truck is just stuff.
Not even stuff behind the dump truck, just in the other little rooms, when I went down there, you got a bunch of old stuff that just, I mean, what are we storing it for, right? I
There
mean,
really isn't much use of it.
correct,
A lot of that stuff we like timed out. So as we
Yes.
initially replaced our air packs, we didn't we threw the stuff away at this station. We didn't throw the stuff down.
right.
It's really more the use of the training.
Yeah, no, I get that, I just, Matt's got his, building, that's all cleaned up there, and I look at that, that's another. You trying to clean that up, I mean, probably should just kinda, there's some old helmets over there, there's a bunch of old stuff, it's just. There's a couple of like, packs, watering packs for, like probably for fields, something and stuff, you get some old cans in there, they're just stacked up in there, there's no. Semblance of anything down there, it's just gotta straighten it up, make it look right.
Probably about 10% of what's in there, other than the training stuff, only about 10% of the stuff really has any value.
Right.
And that's probably.
That's what I'm saying, don't try to say, let's load the thing up.
Yeah, that's something we have been working on, but that's on me as much as I.
Keeping on track, do we have any other questions or anything regarding
I just
leasing the space
yeah.
at the Innovest? Thank you.
I got room. Just one, have you ever thought of cleaning that place up a little and
Right.
organizing it and running it to other fire departments?
Moving on to next item 237, consideration of section 906 order.
This is simply a housekeeping measure. Anytime a new tax collector is appointed, the municipal officers need to update the 906 order. I was appointed the new tax collector when I was hired on June the 5th. So anyway, I have this form to pass around. I will hope that you guys will.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
All are in favor? All right, item 238, consideration of approval of the minutes of the December 4th and December 21st, 2023 council meetings. Is there a?
I move that we approve the minutes of December 4th and December 21st, 2023 council meetings.
Second.
All in favor?
I'll abstain.
Okay. Abstain. Okay. One abstain. All right, item 239, consideration of recommendations from the appointments committee. Bruce?
I have one renewal for Gregory Chamberlain for the zoning board of appeals.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor? All are in favor? All right. So moving on to other business, I will now open it up for public comment. 9:27, is there any public comment from the public? No. All right, moving on to the town manager's report.
So just a reminder, the next meeting, our workshop meeting, which will begin at 6 p.m. We're gonna have anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours of NIMS training. That's the National Incident Management System. Our elected officials need to be trained on this in order for us to be NIMS compliant. If we ever need to seek some aid from MEMA or FEMA. That's January the 22nd at 6 p.m. And also that evening, we're going to try to also have our forum on community resilience. And remember that's grant that we are seeking to help with KB Cog to $50,000.
What,
Yes,
what was the date of the MIMS training?
and that's gonna be at our next workshop meeting on January the 22nd.
Oh, okay, all right, I had that down.
Yeah, so earlier this evening, we approved a liquor license renewal for the White Duck, other pretty perfunctory things. In some communities, the elected body delegates to the town manager the authority to approve, liquor license renewals. And I was thinking that might be a way to help expedite these meetings just in a little bit, but I would always just consult with our police chief to make sure there's no issues at any of the places that are seeking a liquor license renewal. So if you folks are interested in that, I can put something on an upcoming agenda in which you grant the town manager that authority. Thoughts?
I don't care, I just like to know if you deny anything.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
So
I
I
don't think
guess
it takes up that much time, we cruise right through them anyway. I
Well,
guess we have to be
you
presented to us.
I tell you what,
Yeah.
what we would do is if the town manager were inclined, or the police chief were inclined, to decline to renew a license, we would bring that to the council.
Okay, thank you. I like that, that's fine.
Okay, so we'll draft up a policy for February. Also, at our February workshop, we're going to have I'm gonna have Linda Filer, who is our general assistance administrator, come and just talk to you about what she's facing on a week-to-week basis when it comes to general assistance requests. Most of those being sparked by the presence of some recovery homes.
I understand that there's some changes.
We have a new recovery home facility. It's a former nursing home. Told that there are 45 beds in it. It doesn't meet all the federal certifications it needs to get full funding. But the issue is that the residents there can come to us and get funding. So we've been soliciting ideas from other communities about ways that we can mitigate the financial impact of that. And we just want to bring the council up to speed on that. You know, I had a conversation with Councilwoman Caprera here a little earlier, and we're gonna look at ways, we're gonna explore if there's any opportunities for us to ensure that there's some sort of permitting process for these, if that's even legal, moving forward. So we're gonna be exploring some options with that, but I think it'd be interesting for you to hear from.
Can we create an ordinance regarding those types of facilities?
That's one of the avenues we'll be exploring with the town attorney, just to see.
For the regulation.
What the options, right, you know, or whether there's some zoning ordinance regulations that we may want to consider. So, and Linda had a great idea. We're gonna invite our state senator and our state representative to come to that discussion so they can hear how this is impacting our community, because as you may have heard, there is a proposal before the legislature to increase the reimbursement rate to towns from 70% to 90%. And obviously, we could really use that help at this point.
If I remember correctly, and there's no guarantee of that, it was, quite a few years ago, there was some halfway house type developments up on this Stewart.
Are we looking at telling stories?
No, that's wrong. And up on the Stewart Hill Road, and we were warned off of overregulating that. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, we'll talk with the town attorney about it. That's what why we paid the big bucks. Just a brief Mooring Committee update. We had a really productive Mooring Committee meeting last week, and we are now in the process of drafting an ordinance with input from all of our Mooring Committee members. So I think that's going really well. We're very easily going to deliver something to you well before August of this year, I think, for you to consider. We did receive 2 responses to our heat pump RFP. And so I did reach out to Efficiency Maine today just to see if they would be interested in providing some input on those responses. So haven't heard back from them yet, but we're going to be moving forward on that shortly. Wednesday, we will have a planning board public hearing on the proposed mining ordinance. So we've had lots of citizens who are eager to have their bite at the apple with that. So Wednesday will be the first of 2 public hearings before the planning board. And then when that eventually comes to the council, there'll be at least 1 public hearing and potentially 2 public hearings for people to weigh in on that. So that should be a big meeting. I said at the, Executive Assistant Deb Nichols noted that I had, scheduled a budget workshop on Patriots Day. So we adjusted the budget schedule slightly, so I'm gonna pass around the updated budget schedule. And then lastly, we previously talked about some goals for the town manager. And so I said I would come up with some goals, and I was hoping you folks would come up with some goals, so I'm gonna also pass around my proposed goals. So we can talk about that a little later, as well. Thus ends the town manager's report.
All right, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Great, thank you, brother, for
All in favor? All right, I'll see you guys later.
No running.
I gotta finish testimony tonight.
Trust me, are you telling stories?
Typing it out.
I know.
That's a long day. No. You can put it
I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Okay, let me-
Have a good night.
They should be green. Green.
Thank you for this. No, no, I'm just wondering, no problem. I knew what it was trying to.
Oh my gosh.
For a while there, I was wondering if I could have to remind you, we didn't have to do it at 10 o'clock. We're to go out.
No, this is over here reminding me too. You have to put that around. Oh, I did too. The first of the year.
And they're all actually concerned about the workshop next week, 2-hour session.
No, we'll do some shorter ones, but thanks for lining up that agenda. It's pretty long.
I didn't have a agenda.
I had actual coffee, you know, I have to look for it. It's really bad. I had no coffee. This whole coffee.
That's a great segue.
It's probably-
Hey, I did the best I could. I cut the appointments out of it at least. Oh, next month.
Thank you.
Give you time to think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, you too.